Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us here on KXAN Live. I'm Will Dupree, coming to you from the KXAN Live studio, joined by KXAN investigative journalist Kelly Wiley. Kelly, thanks for being here too.
Thank you for having me again. I'm loving this regular occurrence.
Yeah, it's always a nice way to start my Wednesday whenever you are here. And just to let everybody know, we're going to be discussing some of the big stories that the KXAN Investigates team has covered this past week. And we want to start with one that really trended on our website. This is what the headline read, and it surprised a lot of people. It read, Texas grants funeral director license to veteran who cared for fallen soldiers, then takes it away. Now, the reporter who brought us this story joins us now for a conversation. And Kelly, you're going to introduce our guest.
This is KXAN investigator Mike Rush joining us from the home office, it looks like.
Yeah, I guess if you can call it an office. Yeah, it's the one room in the house that's quiet, so that's where I am.
I
How
love
are you?
it.
Nice to see you.
Well, it's so good to see you. I'm so excited to talk about your story because I remember when you were telling Will and I about it, Will's mouth was dropped the whole time. So
Right,
it's
yeah.
very
It
interesting.
is a little unbelievable the twists and turns that this story has taken, so I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Well, you introduced us to Desiree. Tell us about his background.
Okay. His name is Desiree Wilson. He's a guy who has interest in things that I would think is fair to say most of us don't. When he was 6 years old, he attended his great aunt's funeral. And he says from the moment that he attended that, he knew that that's the line of work that he wanted to go into, like being a funeral director. And I think that, like I remember going to a funeral, my first funeral when I was like 15 or so, and I was just really kind of freaked out by the whole experience. But he saw it in a much different way, and gladly so, because we need people like this who can do this type of work. He really appreciated the care with which the person was taken, and just the honor of being able to take care of them, and also the honor and the care with which they took care of the people coming in, the ones who were grieving. So that struck a nerve with him, and he knew from that moment when he was 6 that that's the line of work that he wanted to do.
And he went on to do that work in the military, right?
He did. When he was 20, he joined the military. I think it was around 2003. And he eventually became a mortuary affairs specialist. And what they do is they take on the very, very solemn task of collecting our fallen soldiers. Sometimes they have to go out into the field and find the remains of our fallen soldiers, identify them, and go through that entire process. And then they bring them back to base and they take care of them. They everything from assisting with the autopsies to doing embalmings, dressing them, getting them prepped for viewing when they get back home, putting them in their casket, a lot of special care, and sending them home along with their belongings. And one thing that really was poignant that I remember him saying was that, they have to identify all the things they have on them. And right there, you're looking at an award he got. It was a commendation that he got for working at Dover Air Force Base in the mortuary section, which is basically the area where most of the bodies come back into the country, fallen soldiers do. And he was awarded a commendation for his excellent work. But anyway, he takes their belongings and he has to look through them and document them. And he saw their identification cards. He saw letters that they had written for their family members, which they hadn't had a chance to send out. So it was very, very personal to him. He saw it as a ministry. So obviously he wanted to carry that forward, Kelly, when he got out of the military somewhere around 10 years later.
And so he gets out of the military. He wants to continue doing this work, but your story starts where he was essentially blocked from doing that by an agency in Texas. Where does all this stand, and why was it so difficult for him to start doing this work after having so much experience?
Right. Well, it really came down to education. If you are a citizen, not in the military, and you want to become a funeral director, so to speak, or even an embalmer, two separate licenses, you have to go to school, mortuary college. You have to get an accredited mortuary college degree. That's a requirement. Well, Desiree argued that his extensive service in the military, and he took care of about 3,000 fallen soldiers over the years. He argued that should work in lieu of the requirement of having to go to mortuary college, and he believed that the law was on his side with that. And so he argued year after year and went before the commission, which is the Texas Funeral Service Commission, and they continually said you have to get your schooling. Well, finally, there was a break in the dam this year. There was a newer executive director. He started just last August, and then right around May of this year, his name is James White. He took a look at the credentials that Mr. Wilson has in the military, and he said, okay, you can take, if you take the national board, which everybody has to take, and if you pass it, then I'll grant you your funeral director license. And this is the license right there. He passed it on the first try. Many people don't. And so he's very happy about that. But then he had to relinquish it just 3 months later, Kelly. That's the crazy part. He had to relinquish it 3 months later. And what this all really is, it's kind of what I'm gathering. It's a battle over Texas law. What does Texas law say about this? There were a couple of statutes that I had in my news story. And I'm not going to, believe me, I'm not going to sit here and read a whole bunch of Texas law to you. Okay. That would be boring. But one of them does say the executive director of a state agency may waive any prerequisite to obtaining a license after reviewing the applicant's credentials. It seems like that fits. I'm not a lawyer, but that does. He was the executive director. He did do that. But something happened internally at the Funeral Service Commission that I'm not privy to because they're not commenting on it. But you have your commissioners, you have your executive director. Something happened there in the months between him being granted the license and it being taken away. Something political, I assume. And it was taken away from him. That's where it stands right now. And so Desiree continues to this day to fight to try to get that license back.
My last question to you, because this is obviously unfortunate for Desiree, but looking broader, what does this mean for veterans in general who are looking to transition back into society using the skills that they learned while they were in the military?
And that is a great question, Kelly, because we're talking about this very specific thing, a funeral director license, but obviously not everyone's going to be doing that as a small segment of the society. But any military member who has gotten some sort of trade experience in the military and then transitions to civilian life, you know, they could use these laws that were used for Desiree to not have to go to additional schooling. And it doesn't matter if you're a funeral director or an engineer or a plumber or whatever. The state law seems to read that they can use this in lieu of additional schooling for any sort of profession that requires a license. So with this being called into question, with this particular commission, then it does raise the issue that maybe other agencies will look at this as a precedent and that won't be counted. Their military experience may not be counted.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm looking forward to seeing what other answers you're able to get from this. Clearly, so many people are interested to know these answers. But thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. You can watch the full story on KXAN.com. It's there right now. We are going to be continuing with updates, so stand by for those. Thanks for having me, Kelly.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, if you would like to read Mike's story, it's available on our website right there. The headline is Texas Grants Funeral Director License to Veteran Who Cared for Fallen Soldiers, Then Takes It Away. It's available on KXAN.com. Now, Kelly, while I still have you, I want to talk about a story that you reported about this week, and it's also available on our website and our mobile app. But this past week, you reported about a new lawsuit filed against the leader of the Texas Education Agency. And this legal challenge includes several local school districts. Remind us who's involved with this and what their goal is exactly.
So the district that's in our area, Del Valley ISD, is one of 7 school districts that's a part of this lawsuit. And from what I understand, they're open to other school districts joining as well. But the crux of it is that the Texas Education Agency this year, or not this year, but it's been kind of a work in progress, they've decided to refresh how they score and grade school districts. Every public school district in Texas gets an A through F grade, and it's based on several factors, including star results, including other factors that weigh into accountability for school districts. And the Texas Education Agency has said that that system needs to be refreshed. The argument is that in order for us to get a good apples to apples comparison between school districts, you do have to refresh the factors that decide that, so that parents can and other stakeholders can get a good look at the differences between school districts. But the argument that these districts are making is one about the timing. They're saying that they learned that about this refresh, and that this refresh was going to be actually counting a school year where they didn't quite know that the refresh was going to be happening. They argued that they need to be told about the changes in the A through F accountability rating metrics a year ahead of time, so they can know going into the school year how they'll be graded. And they're saying that the main factor of this lawsuit is saying that school districts who actually improved from year to year would still get a drop in their score because of the new metrics that are set in this refresh. So it's really something to watch. We've seen districts, not just the ones included in this lawsuit, say that this is not fair and that they want the timing of when these new metrics would be applied to school districts to be delayed. We've also seen lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, also write to the Texas Education Agency concerned about how these metrics would be applied, particularly them being applied to last school year. So that's the ongoing issue. We have not gotten a comment from the Texas Education Agency because now this is a matter that's being litigated, and that's not their practice to comment on that. But definitely something to watch, especially going into what we know will be a special session in October, where they're talking about STAR results, where they're talking about how schools are being scored and graded, and they're also talking about school choice. So a lot going on with education all at once. Go to our website and read more about what this lawsuit is saying, and the reasons behind what TEA is saying, and the reasons behind the refresh. We're going to continue our reporting on this matter, though.
I think that's a great place to leave that conversation, because I know that you'll be covering it all along the way as this lawsuit keeps developing in court, and see what the next proceedings will bring. So, Kelly, thank you for that. And before we let you go, I also want to highlight, we are wanting to do a good job about talking about some of the other work that's happening kind of behind the scenes before some of the reporters on our Investigates team bring us their stories. And we have a preview for someone's story today, right?
Yes. You're about to hear from one of our investigative reporters who has an investigation coming up next week, Matt Grant.
Hey all, KXAN Investigative Reporter Matt Grant here. We're working on a story. This Friday, a new state law goes into effect. It's going to reform the Texas Medical Board. It's going to better protect patients, provide more transparency